Welcome to History Whispers, where stories of the past speak to the soul of the present. You're listening to our special series, Lessons from the Books, where we explore timeless wisdom from some of the greatest literary works ever written. I'm your host, Mark Robinson, and I'm honored to have you here. In our very first episode, we journeyed through the powerful allegories of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, a book that spoke of destiny, signs, and the soul of the world. But today, I bring forward a book of a different kind, a book born not in fantasy, but in fire. Today's episode centers on Man's Search for Meaning, a profound and unforgettable work by Viktor E. Frankl, a psychiatrist, philosopher, and survivor of the Nazi concentration camps. This book is not just a memoir, it's a psychological lifeline. Frankl takes us through the horrors he witnessed, and yet, from within those horrors, he uncovered something eternal, the power of meaning. So let's begin this journey. Let's uncover the life lessons that echo from within this remarkable work. Lesson 1. Meaning in Suffering. Viktor E. Frankl once wrote, "In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." Let that settle, because in that single sentence lies one of the most transformative truths ever written. Frankl endured starvation, torture, and the loss of nearly everyone he loved. He was surrounded by death, despair, and darkness. And yet, even in that horror, he discovered something strangely liberating. That no matter how intense the pain, if we can assign it meaning, we transcend it. You see, suffering in and of itself is not noble. No one seeks it. But life doesn't ask whether we want to suffer, it simply brings it. What matters is what we do with it. Frankl realized that when we can say to ourselves, "I am suffering for something, through something, toward something," then the suffering becomes part of a greater journey. It stops being a curse and starts becoming a calling. Think about a mother going through labor. The pain is real, unimaginable even. But the moment she holds her newborn child, the suffering is no longer remembered as just pain. It's remembered as a path, a necessary journey to something precious. Or think of someone fighting cancer, going through chemotherapy. The body weakens, hair falls, pain lingers. But if that person says, "I'm fighting to see my daughter grow, I'm fighting to live my purpose," then each round of treatment becomes not just a burden, but a mission. That's what Frankl meant. In the concentration camps, he saw that those who lost meaning, those who could no longer find a reason to suffer, died faster. But those who said, "I have a book to write, I have a child to see again, I must witness, I must teach," they survived longer. They lived for something. He called it logotherapy, the idea that the will to meaning, not pleasure or power, is the primary drive in human life. So what about you? What are you going through right now? Grief, rejection, illness, failure? Ask yourself, not why me, but what can this teach me? What am I fighting for? Who am I becoming through this? Because in that shift, from victim to student, from sufferer to seeker, everything changes. Frankl proved that meaning can transform suffering from a prison to a path. And that is a life lesson worth remembering. Lesson 2. The why empowers the how. Viktor E. Frankl echoed the powerful words of Friedrich Nietzsche when he wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." It's not just philosophy, it's survival strategy. It's spiritual truth. Because when your why, your purpose, is strong enough, you can endure the how, no matter how painful, how complex, or how hopeless it seems. Frankl didn't write this from an armchair. He lived it, in the freezing barracks of Auschwitz, in the long, cruel lines of forced labor, in the silence after hearing of his wife's death. What kept him alive? It wasn't luck. It wasn't strength. It was purpose. He had a why, to survive so he could share what he learned, to write the book that would help others find meaning through their own suffering. And that why carried him through the unbearable. Let me bring this to the real world. Think of Malala Yousafzai, a young girl in Pakistan who was shot in the head just for going to school. She could have given up. but she had a why. Education for every girl in the world. And that why transformed her pain into a global movement. Or think of someone recovering from addiction. The how is brutal. Withdrawals, relapse, rebuilding trust. But the why? My kids need a parent they can be proud of. My life is worth saving. That's the fuel. That's the fire. You see, when you lack a why, even the small burdens of life feel heavy. But when your why is clear, even mountains feel movable. So here's the question for you, right now, wherever you are. What is your why? What wakes you up in the morning when everything inside you wants to stay in bed? What pushes you forward when life hits you hard? If you don't know your why yet, search for it. It might be in your family. It might be in your art. It might be in the people you want to serve, the story you want to tell, or the version of yourself you're still fighting to become. Frankl teaches us this: find your why, and your how will find its strength. Your path might be messy, it might be long, but your why will carry you. Lesson 3: The 3 paths to meaning. When we ask ourselves, what is the meaning of life? We often expect some grand, universal answer. But Viktor Frankl challenges that. He writes, "What matters is not the meaning of life in general, but the specific meaning of a person's life at a given moment." Meaning, he says, is not something we discover once. It's something we discover again and again through how we live, love, and endure. Frankl offers us 3 distinct paths to find meaning in life. Not abstract theory, but real, lived ways to anchor ourselves in purpose, no matter our circumstances. Let's explore them together. Path 1, creating or doing. This is the meaning we find through our work, our creativity, our contribution. Whether you're painting a canvas, writing a book, building a business, or simply showing up for your daily tasks with integrity, this is the meaning born through action. Take Steve Jobs. He faced criticism, failure, even personal hardship, but he believed in what he was building. His vision of putting a dent in the universe gave meaning to every hour he spent on his craft. Or think smaller, a teacher staying after school to help a struggling child. There is deep meaning in that simple, silent sacrifice. This path reminds us what you create can outlive you. Path 2, experiencing love or connection. Frankl wrote, "Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of their personality." Love, he said, is not just emotion, it is recognition. To love someone is to see them in their wholeness, beyond the surface, into the soul. For Frankl, the memory of his wife, her smile, her presence, kept him alive in the camps, even though he didn't know if she was still breathing. That's the power of connection. Think of someone like Mother Teresa. She found her meaning not in creating, but in being with the forgotten, the dying, the discarded. Her life was her message: you matter. You are not invisible. Or even think of the single father who wakes up at 5 a.m. to pack his child's lunch, working 2 jobs with no applause, just love. This path reminds us, you find meaning in how you hold others. Path 3, choosing courage in unavoidable suffering. Sometimes we can't act. Sometimes we can't create or even connect. All we have is the choice to endure with dignity. That's what Frankl calls the highest form of meaning. Because in the face of suffering we did not choose, we are still given one freedom, the power to say, "I will carry this with purpose." Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind prison bars. He couldn't change his situation, but he chose his response. He emerged not bitter, but with a message of peace and reconciliation that reshaped a nation. Or Malala, again, shot for speaking out, and instead of hiding, she rose. This path reminds us, even pain, when carried with courage, can become sacred. So ask yourself, which path are you on today? Are you creating something that matters? Are you loving someone deeply? Are you enduring something with silent strength? Each path is valid. Each path is powerful. And sometimes we walk all 3 in a single day. Because meaning is not a destination. It is a way of walking through life, with awareness, with purpose, and with heart. Remember, whether it's through what you build, who you love, or how you endure, your meaning is yours to define. Lesson 4. freedom of attitude. Viktor E. Frankl wrote something radical, something that still echoes louder than many modern self-help books combined. He said, "The last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Let's pause on that. He wasn't talking about choosing your attitude when things are going well. He was talking about choosing it even in oppression, even in chains, even in suffering. You see, life can take away your money. It can take away your job, your freedom, even your loved ones. But the one thing it cannot take, unless you surrender it, is your attitude. That's your final line of defense, your final power. Frankl discovered this not in a classroom, but in a Nazi concentration camp. He watched men die of hopelessness, collapse from despair. And yet, some still stood tall. Some still shared bread. Some still comforted others. They were not free in the world, but they were free within. That is the freedom of attitude. Let me show you how this works in our world today. Take Nick Vujicic, a man born without arms or legs, a life most of us would call limited. But not Nick. He chose his situation into a testimony. Today, he's a global speaker, a man of faith, a husband, a father, because he chose his attitude, not once, but every single day. Or think of Nelson Mandela again, locked in a cell for 27 years. He had every reason to hate. But when he walked out of that prison, he chose forgiveness. He said, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." That is the freedom Frankl was speaking of. And in our own lives, think of the single mother raising children after abandonment, the refugee rebuilding life from ruins, the young person battling depression, choosing each day to keep going. None of these people chose their pain, but all of them chose their response. So ask yourself, when life pushes you, what do you push back with? Anger? Despair? Bitterness? Or do you dig deep, breathe, and respond with grace, strength, and quiet courage? Because here's the truth. Your attitude is not shaped by your conditions. It is shaped by your convictions. Frankl proved that even the most brutal captivity cannot touch a soul that has decided to remain free. So no matter where you are or what you're going through, you are still free to choose who you become. That is your power. That is your dignity. That is your birthright. Lesson 5. Self-transcendence. Viktor E. Frankl once said, "The more one forgets himself, by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is." And again, he wrote, "True fulfillment comes not from focusing on oneself, but from rising above the self toward a greater cause, another human being, or a set of guiding values." This is what he called self-transcendence. It's a concept that challenges almost everything modern culture teaches us. A culture that screams, "Find yourself, chase your dreams, look inward." And yet Frankl quietly reminds us that the deepest meaning isn't found by looking inward, but by reaching outward. Let's explore what that really means. You've probably felt it before, those moments when you were so immersed in helping someone, supporting a cause, creating something meaningful, that you forgot yourself. Your worries didn't matter, your ego faded, your personal struggle took a back seat. And somehow, in that moment, you felt more alive, more connected, more human. That's self-transcendence, and Frankl believes it's the core of human dignity and purpose. Let me bring this idea into the real world. Think of Dr. Paul Farmer, the American physician who devoted his life to treating the poor in Haiti and Africa. He could have chosen wealth, comfort, and status, but he gave himself to a cause greater than himself, healthcare as a human right. He worked in dangerous zones, lived simply, and held the hand of people dying in places the world had forgotten. And in doing so, he became not just a doctor, but a legend of compassion. Or think of Oskar Schindler, a German businessman who started off seeking profit during World War II. But something shifted. He began to see the Jews around him not as laborers, but as lives worth saving. He risked everything, his money, his freedom, his safety to save over 1,200 Jews from the Holocaust. He transcended himself, and in that, he found meaning far beyond what profit or success could offer. Frankl teaches us that when we make our lives about more than ourselves, we become truly human. And this doesn't mean you need to be a hero on the world stage. Sometimes, self-transcendence is as simple as a daughter caring for an aging parent, a volunteer teaching children in an underserved community, a stranger listening to someone who needs to be heard. Each act of forgetting ourselves for something or someone greater expands our soul. So today, ask yourself not what you want from life, but what does life ask of me? What cause can I serve? Whose burden can I help lift? What truth or value or love can I live for? Because, as Frankl reminds us, when we forget ourselves in service to something deeper, we don't lose ourselves, we become our fullest selves. That is the paradox, and that is the power of self-transcendence. Lesson 6. Existential Responsibility. Viktor Frankl didn't believe that life simply happens to us. He believed that life questions us, and that we must answer, not with words, but with how we live. In Man's Search for Meaning, he says, "Live as if you were living for the second time, and had acted as wrongly the first time as you are about to act now." It's a haunting challenge. Imagine it. What if you were here again, given a second chance? Would you make the same decision you're about to make today? This isn't just about regret. It's about responsibility. Frankl called it existential responsibility, the idea that each of us is accountable for giving life meaning, not by waiting, but by choosing, by standing up, by doing what is right, especially when it's hard. He tells a story in the book, one that defined his life forever. In 1939, Viktor Frankl had a visa to escape Austria and travel to America. It was the dream, the escape. He had his ticket to safety in hand. But then he thought of his parents, elderly, Jewish, and completely vulnerable in Nazi-occupied Vienna. He knew what could happen to them. So he stayed. He sacrificed safety for duty, not because he had to, but because he believed responsibility is what gives life moral weight. This is the lesson. Every day we are given choices to take the easy road or the right one, to protect only ourselves or to take responsibility for others. Responsibility might not always feel rewarding in the moment. It doesn't come with applause, but it comes with peace. And those were the 6 lifelong lessons we've uncovered from this beautiful, heartwarming, and at times heart-wrenching journey, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor E. Frankl. Lessons about suffering, about purpose, about love, freedom, responsibility, and the very core of what it means to be human. This has been episode 2 of our special series, Lessons from the Books, right here on History Whispers. If you haven't checked out episode 1, go into our playlist and watch our deep dive into The Alchemist, where we explored 7 great life lessons from Paulo Coelho's masterpiece. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite book? What book would you like to see featured in the next episode? And from today's lesson, which insight from Man's Search for Meaning touched you the most? Let's talk about it in the comments. Until then, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and above all, keep seeking meaning in your everyday life. This is Mark Robinson, and you're watching History Whispers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who might need a little meaning in their day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.